All right, everyone, we have news from my home state here in Vermont. The Vermont Sportsmen are currently suing over the legality of some of the anti-gunnery that's gone on in the state. I love it because our moron governor, who somehow, despite being a governor, is probably less well-known than me, which is funny. I'm a fucking YouTuber, from small-town America, and, nobody cares who Phil Scott is. Half of Vermont doesn't care either. He was elected partially because Sue Minter, his original opponent, was a fan of Bloomberg gun control laws. The only thing that Phil Scott parsed out when he passed his pig-in-a-pokery anti-gunnery was the ban on assault-style weapons. Everything else passed. Magazine restrictions, waiting period, etc., etc. Here's the problem. They're targeting two specific ordinances, which is the waiting period. So you have to, when you buy a gun, you get cleared to buy it, but then you have to wait several days. This makes no sense, number one, because let's say that you're like me. You already own guns. If you're going haywire, what are you going to do? Are you going to use the weapons you already have, or are you going to go out and wait 72 hours to buy another one? It doesn't really make a lot of sense. Most of the people that are going to be buying a gun, it's not their first gun. So it's not exactly preventing someone who's gone crazy and intends to go postal and go shoot up the non-existent, in Rutland's case, shopping mall or something like that. It's not going to stop them. Makes no sense. It's also completely arbitrary. If you can set a 72-hour waiting period, why can't it be 4 weeks? Why can't it be a year? There's literally no legal reason why you can make that differentiation, so I strongly support that. Then you've got the magazine restrictions, of course. For example, this is a Glock 17. It chambers 15 rounds. That's perfectly legal in the state of Vermont. 15 is the limit for handguns. If I had a magazine that could fit in both a pistol and rifle variant and chambered 15, if I put it in the pistol, for instance, I get an AR pistol and an AR rifle, an AR-15. I get the pistol variant and the rifle variant. If I take a magazine with 15 rounds and put it in the pistol variant, I'm fine. If I put it in the rifle variant because it's 2 inches fucking longer and has a fixed stock, all of a sudden I am a felon under Vermont law. It makes absolutely no sense. It mirrors the nonsensical nature of the ATF's regulation with regards to guns on the federal level, so I rise up in strong support of this particular legal case. Now, will the case work? Unlikely. The Vermont State Supreme Court has already inexplicably ruled, despite Bruin, by the way, that would be an extra challenge at this point, already ruled it legal. Effectively, the state of Vermont is saying that standard capacity magazines for rifles, which tends to be 20 or 30 rounds, are illegal, and that's perfectly okay. What's to prevent them from saying you can't have magazines at all? Because it's not a gun. This is not an arm, and the Second Amendment doesn't cover magazines. What about if they just fucking banned bullets? It's completely and utterly, totally arbitrary. There is no sense behind it whatsoever. Waiting periods are the most asinine of all, though. Waiting periods not only are arbitrary, but they would prevent somebody who's, like, let's say that you've got some diminutive little old lady. She's got an abusive ex-boyfriend, so she decides to defend herself. You're saying that for the next 3 days she has to be disarmed? She can't defend herself? Maybe she borrows a gun from the neighbor. Can I please borrow your revolver for the night? I don't feel safe. The government of the state of Vermont is retarded. These people don't understand common sense. By the way, Vermont's one of the safest states in the Union. We don't have a gun crime problem. Well, other than when New Yorkers come over for drug deals and end up blasting each other. By the way, most of the gun crime in the state of Vermont that doesn't involve somebody killing themselves or an accidental shooting related to hunting, most of it's gang-related. And it ain't gangs that exist in Vermont. It's people that come through Rutland or Burlington dealing coke, dealing crack and fentanyl and shit like that. Why don't you have better border security in the state of Vermont? Why don't you check the New Yorkers when they come in and have a little toll gate or something like that, like they have in every fucking other state? Why don't you do that instead? That would keep the criminals out. Oh, I bet you'd find plenty of drugs and illegal weapons then. Don't worry, us Vermonters, we can find our own drugs. Disclaimer, I haven't used them in a very, very long time. I don't even use marijuana because I can't. Don't worry, Phil. I'm sober, more or less. I've got my drug of choice right here, of course. Our governor's a moron. Our Supreme Court justices are morons. Our Congress is littered with morons. Goddamn, there's barely any Vermonters in our goddamn state house. Most of these people are from out of state. It's like Howard Dean when he was governor. He wasn't from Vermont. Bernie Sanders, he's from fucking Brooklyn. All of the politicians that we donate to the nation or that exist within our own state, they're not even Vermonters. No, I wonder why our state is a little bit dysfunctional. A bunch of NIMBYist goofballs with McMansions decided to move in, destroy our tree lines, and then they litter our Congress in the state of Vermont. Barely any real Vermonters left. Half the population of Burlington is like first-gen Vermonters at best. They don't even sound like Vermonters. I can remember this crazy old dude named Lyle, and he had the biggest lisp of anyone I've ever met, by the way. Crazy old farmer dude, and he used to live under a bridge in Woodstock. He's more Vermonter. He's dead by now, I'm sure. He was already old when I was a kid. No, this is retarded. I support the Vermont Sportsmen completely. If they can get into contact with me on Twitter, maybe I could help them with their case a little bit. Sweeten the deal some. I'd love to take up more of an activistic role in restoring my state to some semblance of order. We didn't have any gun control for our entire inception as a state, other than a suppressor ban for a while, which was it was shot down. Rand Paul, by the way, thank you very much for helping pioneer that. We had no gun control, as in literally anything went. If the federal law didn't have a role to play in your decided purchase, the state didn't give a damn. What was our gun crime rate? Was it high or was it very, very low? It was very, very low. There are accidental shootings because we're a hunting state. There are always going to be people with seasonal affective that decide to blow their brains out. Gun crime in the deliberate, inflicted sense, gang crime, etc., was almost non-existent in Vermont during that period when we had no gun control at all. All of a sudden, a shooting, Sandy Hook specifically, happens in another state, and it's used as an excuse to pass gun control in the state. And what happens? Oh, the gun crime rate rose. Well, imagine that. Well, you see, I want my fellow Vermonters to be safe. I don't want my fellow Vermonters to fucking die. I don't want them to be shot. I would rather, if some crazy gang member from New York City or Boston inevitably decides to shoot up the street, I want somebody to be able to fire back. Because then you're short one gang member, that's a good thing, fuck them. If they die, that's a good thing for the world, and you've got a few less dead Vermonters. And by the way, less dead tourists too. I find that to be a good thing. I'm not understanding why the state government disagrees with me. I rise up in strong support of this case and hope it prevails, but I don't expect it to, because the Vermont State Supreme Court and our Congress are littered with leftoids from the West Coast. That's basically their composition. We're basically hostages in our own home state. Pray that New Hampshire doesn't suffer the same fate, by the way. That's about all. Peace out.